Hello and welcome. Tonight, we journey back to a world long buried beneath layers of earth and centuries of forgetting, to a place where the river was life, where gods whispered through clay tablets, and where towering ziggurats reached slowly toward the heavens. This is Babylon, not the mythic Babylon of grandeur and gold, but the live-in, sun-baked, earthen Babylon of ordinary people, the one with flies buzzing at dusk, the low murmur of priests reading omens, and the scent of bitumen thick in the air. This video is part of your quiet time, a slow, steady journey through time. It's not meant to excite, but to soothe, inform, and gently settle you into sleep as we explore the rhythms, the rituals, the struggles, and the splendors of ancient life. Over the next 2 hours, we'll move through 4 distinct moments in this ancient Mesopotamian world. First, we'll explore why daily life in Babylon was far from easy. Then, we'll dive into the story of Hammurabi's famed legal code. After that, we'll float gently into the mystery of the Hanging Gardens. And finally, we'll step into the hushed, perfumed chambers of a Babylonian palace. So, allow yourself to relax, breathe slowly, let the past unfold gently before you. And now, let us begin. Imagine waking up in Babylon. Sometime around 1750 BCE, the air is already warm, dry, and dusty with the smell of clay, river reeds, and yesterday's cooking fires lingering in your nostrils. The ceiling above you is low, made of tightly packed mud bricks that seem to breathe slowly in the morning light. There's no privacy. Your family sleeps nearby, curled on woven mats or animal hides. The room is dark, save for a crack in the wooden door where sunlight slants through like a blade. You rise, carefully stepping over sleeping limbs. Your feet hit the packed earth floor, still cool from the night, but it won't stay that way for long. Outside, the streets are already stirring. Chickens peck at trash a potter is carrying his wares in silence. Somewhere in the distance, a temple gong rings. This is Babylon, not as a king or priest would know it, but as you would as a common laborer, a vendor, or perhaps a junior scribe. The heat of sun is not your friend. It rises early and stays late, its rays bouncing off pale, sun-baked walls, making the narrow alleys between homes feel like ovens. Shade is rare, unless you find it beneath one of the larger ziggurats or a canopy in the market. You tie a cloth around your head to keep from overheating. By midday, the air is nearly still. Dust clings to sweat, and the river, life-giving and foul, becomes your only relief. The scent of the city at high noon is hard to ignore. Sweat, burning oils, animal dung, and the slow sour of uncollected waste. There's no sewage system here, not really. Chamber pots are emptied into the street drains, which clog and fester in the heat. Insects thrive. The flies are persistent companions. Your work. Perhaps you are a bricklayer shaping sun-dried clay into walls. The mud you stomp with your bare feet is thick and sticky, blended with straw. It's hard work under a burning sun, and you're paid not in silver, but sometimes in grain oil or cloth. Or maybe you're a young scribe in training, copying signs from tablets. The cuneiform stylus gripped tightly in your aching fingers. You memorize signs for king, tax, temple, and bread. The master's voice drones as he paces behind you. Each stroke must be precise, even though your hands cramp and your back aches from sitting on the hard floor. There is no room for error. The tablets are difficult to reuse. Most people can't read, and most will never rise above their station. Social mobility is rare. You are likely to live and die in the same narrow street where you were born. Food and water. Meals are simple and repetitive. Flat barley bread, maybe some onions, dates if you're lucky, and lentils boiled in river water. You avoid drinking that water directly. It's safer when made into beer. Even the flat, thick kind favored by the poor. Alcohol is not a luxury, it's survival. The market is a crowded place. Criers shout prices. Goods spill over baskets. Clay jars, figs, fish strung on cords, woven sandals. Most transactions are by barter, unless you're among the more fortunate with a little silver tucked away. And always, you owe someone. A tax, a portion of your labor, or your harvest, or your time. The ziggurat and the gods. You pass by the towering ziggurat in the center of the city. It casts a long shadow over the smaller homes. People bow or touch their foreheads to the dust as they walk by. It is the house of the god Marduk, though only priests may enter the upper chambers. Offerings are brought: daily grain, beer, livestock. The gods must be appeased. A bad harvest, a dust storm, a sick child, all signs of divine displeasure. So the rituals continue. Chants rise like smoke. Astrologers read the stars from atop the zig. You watch them sometimes, wondering what they see. Law and order. The laws are harsh and unforgiving. If a builder's wall collapses and kills someone, the builder may be executed. If a merchant cheats a customer, he may lose a hand. If you speak out of turn to someone of higher status, the consequences can be severe. There is no justice as we know it. There is order, and order is sacred. Rest and dusk. As the sun lowers and the heat begins to fade, the city takes on a golden hue. Fires are lit. You share a meal with family, seated on mats. Children laugh. Someone hums an old melody. Later, The city grows quieter. A dog howls in the distance. The stars above Babylon are brilliant. Unspoiled by modern light, you lie down again on your mat, body sore, skin gritty. The same walls surround you, the same ceiling. Tomorrow will be the same. It is a hard life, a life of heat and dust and repetition, of reverence and fear, but also of endurance and ritual, and slow, steady rhythm. The rhythm of their lives, the rhythm of Babylon. Now as the city settles into dusk and the shadows lengthen across the dry courtyards and sloping roofs of Babylon, let us shift our focus from the worn sandals of the laborer to the carved basalt of a monument that would echo through time. We turn now to Hammurabi, king of Babylon, and to the laws he left behind. Not just any laws, but perhaps the first comprehensive written legal code in human history. Etched meticulously into a towering black stele, the Code of Hammurabi still stands as a testament to an ancient vision of justice, one that was both rigid and revealing. But this is not a tale of triumph. It is a tale of control, of consequences, and of the slow, crumbling erosion of ideals. Let's begin at the beginning. The man behind the Code Hammurabi ruled Babylon for over 4 decades, beginning around the year 1792 BCE. He was the 6th king of the first Babylonian dynasty, and though not born to power, he was shrewd and patient. During his reign, Babylon grew from a modest city-state into the dominant force in Mesopotamia. He expanded through diplomacy and war, forging alliances, then breaking them when the timing was right. His enemies underestimated him at first. By the time he turned to writing his famous code, he was no longer just a king, but the ruler of an empire stretching from the Persian Gulf to the Assyrian hills. And yet, he understood something subtle and profound: that power, to last, must be organized, visible, understood, accepted. The code itself, imagine yourself standing before the stele. It is over 7 feet tall, made of black basalt, and shaped like a rounded pillar. At the top, a carving Hammurabi receiving the laws from Shamash, the sun god of justice. His authority, therefore, is not merely royal, it is divine. Beneath the image, the text begins, in cuneiform, painstakingly etched, line after line after line, 282 laws in total. The writing is dense, yet ordered. The laws are grouped by category: trade, agriculture, family life, theft, assault, wages, slavery. And though they may seem ancient, the concerns they address are strikingly familiar. Builders are held responsible for their structures, merchants for their weights and measures, fathers for their children, husbands for their wives, slaves for their behavior, and everyone, no matter their status, has rules to follow. But this is not equality as we might imagine it. The punishments are not uniform. The code is tiered strictly. If a nobleman blinds another nobleman, he shall be blinded. But if a nobleman blinds a commoner, he pays a fine. If a nobleman kills a slave, he compensates the owner. The law is clear, but the scales are not balanced. Law is spectacle, not access. Few Babylonians could read. Cuneiform was a skill reserved for scribes and elites, and so the code was not written for the people to consult, but for them to witness. The stele was placed in public, likely in a temple or gathering space. It wasn't meant to be read by all, but seen by all. Its presence alone was enough to convey the idea: the king is just, and his justice is rooted in the will of the gods. This, too, was part of Hammurabi's brilliance. He transformed law into architecture, into visual language. Justice became a monument, and fear became a form of order. Daily impacts for the average Babylonian. The code meant a life hemmed in by expectations. Contracts had to be written, witnessed, and stored. Marriage agreements spelled out rights and duties. Divorce was permitted but came with strict stipulations. If a woman was found to be barren, her husband could take another wife. If a wife was accused of infidelity, she might be thrown into the river to prove her innocence. If she survived, she was deemed pure. Even children could be disinherited, servants punished, tenants held liable for poor harm. The law governed not only actions, but intentions. If a son struck his father, his hand was cut off. If a house collapsed and caused death, the builder was executed. And yet, in its own way, the code also provided structure. It protected farmers from unjust taxation. It granted inheritance rights to widows. It set minimum wages. It restrained vengeance with defined punishment. Within its harshness was a kind of order, rigid but predictable. The fall and the echo. Hammurabi died in 1750 BCE. His successors struggled to maintain the empire he had built. Within a few generations, Babylon's borders shrank. New powers rose to challenge it. The code, though still etched in stone, began to fade in practice. Other laws were written. Other rulers claimed divine justice. And yet, centuries later, when archaeologists unearthed the stele in the ruins of Susa, a city far from Babylon, they discovered something remarkable. The text remained intact, the laws were preserved, and Hammurabi's name had endured through thousands of years. Today, The stele rests in the Louvre. It is no longer a tool of power, but a relic of thought, of how humans once tried to make sense of each other and of the world around them. Its surface is cool, smooth, silent, but if you listen closely, if you read the lines slowly, you may still hear the voice of a king who wanted his words to last forever. With that, let us gently move forward to a quieter mystery, a slower unfolding, the story of a garden somewhere in the layered sands of Mesopotamia, where the Tigris and Euphrates once pulsed like arteries across the land. There may have stood a garden, not just any garden but one so lush, so improbably beautiful, that it would echo across centuries as one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. But did they truly exist? Tonight, we won't seek a final answer. Instead, let us wander slowly through the many versions of this garden, through poetry and stone, through legend and archaeology, through longing and the silence of ruins. Let us walk where water may once have climbed skyward, the first seeds, what the ancients said. The earliest accounts of the gardens don't come from the Babylonians themselves but from Greek historians, writing centuries after the garden was said to exist. Strabo described them as terraced layers of greenery, trees growing high above the ground, watered by a clever system of irrigation, and supported by stone columns and vaulted foundations, a garden that defied gravity, one that seemed to float. Diodorus of Sicily echoed the image, a lush paradise, created by a Babylonian king to ease the homesickness of his queen, who missed the green hills of her homeland. The queen, often said to be a Midas of Media, longed for the mountains. And so, the story goes, King Nebuchadnezzar II built the gardens to recreate that distant terrain in the flat floodplain of Babylon. It is a romantic vision, a peaceful one, a garden born of love and memory, but it rests on uncertain ground. No Babylonian records. The Babylonians were thorough. They etched temple transactions, grain inventories, even astronomical observations into clay tablets that survive to this day. But not one tablet mentions the Hanging Gardens. Not one. Nebuchadnezzar II, who ruled Babylon at its height in the 6th century BCE, he left inscriptions boasting of his buildings, palaces, ziggurats and walls. Yet never the gardens. The silence is puzzling. Could it be that the gardens never existed, or were they simply not considered as significant as we believe today? Or were they built not in Babylon at all? An alternate theory: Nineveh in the 1990s. British Assyriologist Stephanie Daly proposed a striking idea. What if the Hanging Gardens weren't in Babylon, but in Nineveh, the Assyrian capital further to the north? Daly pointed to linguistic confusion, how the word Babylon was used by later writers to refer to multiple places, including the Gate of the Gods, a title sometimes applied to Nineveh. She examined texts from Sennacherib, the Assyrian king who ruled in the 7th century BC, and found references to a terrace garden irrigated by an advanced water-lifting system, possibly an early screw pump or chain pulley. She studied reliefs carved into palace walls depicting trees sprouting from platforms above arcaded stone structures. A garden elevator. Could this be the true Hanging Garden? If so, the story of the Babylonian queen and the tender king fades. In its place, a tale of Assyrian engineering, political might, and imperial ambition. It is a colder story, but perhaps a truer one. The mechanics of a miracle, whether in Babylon or Nineveh, the gardens, if theirs assisted, were feats of astonishing engineering. Water does not climb on its own. To lift it, one must have power, timing, and tools. Imagine a network of pulleys or screws, perhaps turned by slaves or animals, drawing water from the river and carrying it upward, through hidden channels, to the terrace layers above. The terraces themselves would need strong foundations, likely vaulted in stone to hold the weight of earth, trees, and flowing water. And then, the plants. Imagine palms and pomegranate trees, thick vines, lilies and fragrant herbs, birds calling softly, shade cooling the stones, the sound of water, always trickling. In a city of heat and dust, the gardens would be a miracle, a sacred space, a royal statement, a metaphor for control over nature, over time, over death itself. Searching the ruins. Today, archaeologists search the ancient city of Babylon near Hilla, Iraq. The ruins are expansive ziggurats, temples, walls, but no definitive remains of the gardens have been found. Stone does not lie, but sometimes it stays silent. Nearby, the remains of an immense vaulted structure have been uncovered, but the site is heavily damaged, and interpretations vary. Some see the outline of a palace, others see administrative buildings, still others, the ghost of the garden. In Nineveh, modern Mosul now covers much of the ancient site. What lies beneath may never be fully uncovered, and so we are left with fragments, not facts. The garden as memory, and perhaps that's what the Hanging Gardens truly are. A memory, not of a single place or time, but of an idea, the longing for greenery in a parched land, the dream of peace within power, the quiet beauty of elevation, of life reaching upward, even when everything else pulls down. Whether built in Babylon, Nineveh, or nowhere at all, The hanging gardens invite us to slow down, to imagine, to wander, to walk slowly among leaves that may have never ustle ... but still whisper. And so, with that garden fading behind us, I've seen, half dreamed we take our final step to a place of incense and ivory, of omens and protocol. Let us now enter the palace. The outer walls of Babylon rise in the fading light like clay-colored cliffs. At their peak, battlements catch the last warmth of the sun. Behind those walls, beyond the rumble of markets and the echo of sandals on baked earth, lies a world few ever see, the palace. Tonight, we enter slowly, not as envoys or kings, but as silent observers, eyes drifting, footsteps hushed. Here, in the heart of the ancient empire, life unfolds at a slower rhythm, a rhythm not of survival ... but of ceremony. Let us explore this world of rooms and rituals, of polished floors and whispered omens, a world where silence held meaning, and even the air was watched. The palace itself, built during the reign of Nebuchadnezzar II, the palace complex in Babylon was vast, possibly the largest of its time. It stood near the famed Ishtar Gate, an immense ceremonial arch enameled with blue-glazed bricks and golden lions, bulls, and dragons. The gate was not just decorative, it was symbolic, a threshold between the mundane world and the sacred space of royal power. Step through this gateway and you enter the palace courtyard. The sounds here are muted. The walls are high, designed to keep heat and danger at bay. The bricks are meticulously arranged, some inscribed with the king's name, reminders, gently repeated, of whose space this is. The floors are swept smooth. The doors are heavy, bound with bronze. Guards, silent, expressionless, stand with spears, their eyes tracing every movement. They say little, they are trained to notice everything. Rooms and rituals. The palace is not just a residence, it is a machine of governance. There are rooms for receiving on, rooms for keeping tablets, rooms for scribes, guards, priests, astrologers, stewards, and then there are the private quarters, reserved for the king, his family, his favored servants. Few ever walk those halls. The walls here are cooled with woven cloths soaked in water. The air is perfumed with myrrh and date blossoms. In the evenings, musicians may play softly in the courtyard, harps, flutes, slow rhythms that echo through the arcades. Lanterns of clay or bronze burn quietly, casting long shadows against muraled walls. Meals are quiet events, marked not by laughter but by order. Food is served with care. Roast meats, stewed lentils, fruits preserved in honey, delicate wine flows, though never excessively. Too much noise, too much display would offend Marduk, the city's patron god. Even feasting ... must obey form. The role of the king is more than a ruler. He is a bridge between the people and the gods. Nebuchadnezzar, like his predecessors, performs rituals daily. He consults the priests, he donates to the temple, he oversees the calendar, the building of ziggurats, the reading of omens in the stars and the entrails of animals. He is not divine himself, but his right to rule comes from divinity. His robes are richly woven, but not flamboyant. His sandals are simple. He wears a ring of seal and a circlet on his head. The symbols of his station are quiet, solid, not showy. He does not shout. He speaks slowly, purposefully, and when he enters a room, all fall silent. Eunuchs, servants, and scribes. Much of the palace runs on unseen labor. Eunuchs, trusted attendants, often chosen young and trained for loyalty, manage inner affairs. They know every corridor, every schedule. They move like shadows, never questioning. Servants bring water, oil, and news. They light the lamps, they close the shutters. Scribes record everything. Names, deliveries, visitors, dreams. Each tablet stored carefully in clay jars or shelves. Knowledge is order. Order is divine. If a star appears in an unusual place, the chief astrologer is summoned. If a dove lands in the courtyard, its direction is interpreted. Nothing is ignored. Everything has meaning. To live in the palace is to live in a world layered with signs, luxury, and restraint. The palace is not loud with riches. It is hushed with them. There are carved ivory combs, lapis lazuli beads, linen dyed with indigo and saffron, furniture of cedar and bronze, bowls of onyx, oils scented with frankincense, but nothing is wasted. Every object is in its place. Every corner has a purpose. This is not indulgence. It is display, controlled, deliberate, precise. Even luxury here obeys a code. The view from above, from the upper terraces. The king may stand at dusk and look out. Below, the Euphrates flows muddy and wide. The city hums softly. Children play. Priests chant. Farmers return from the fields. And beyond ... the desert stretched flat, empty. The palace, with all its rules and rituals, is a fortress against that waiting silence, a center of order, of symbol, of civilization itself. Here, inside its walls, Time is measured. Stars are charted, words are carved, and yet nothing lasts. A slow fade, Babylon's palace would fall. The city would be conquered, first by the Persians, then Alexander the Great, then Rome. The walls would crumble, the bricks repurposed, the perfume burned away, the rooms emptied of their careful steps and murmured rituals. But tonight, in memory, it still stands, still quiet, still watching, still turning the rhythm of its world, one careful motion at a time. And now, as we step softly away from the palace, leaving behind the oiled halls and the echo of sandals on stone, we return to stillness, to silence, to sleep. Tonight, we have wandered through the layers of ancient Babylon not as tourists, but as quiet companions to the past. We walked through narrow streets, where dust clung to skin and the sun ruled without mercy. We labored in clay, tasted barley bread, and listened to the slow turning of scribes' tablets. We stood before a black basalt stele where justice was carved in stone and learned how fairness once bowed to hierarchy and ritual. We dreamed among terraces of palms and pomegranates, water lifted against gravity, and gardens perhaps more imagined than real. And finally, we wandered the cool corridors of a palace where power whispered rather than shouted, and every step was measured, every room a message. The rhythm of their lives was slow, repetitive, predictable, often difficult, but it had shape. In a world of floods and droughts, of gods and kings, of laws and omens, people found meaning in order. They built walls, they planted seeds, they carved signs into clay, and though their world has long since faded, its echoes remain, in language, in law, in gardens, in ruins, and in you. As you listen, as you sleep, the past does not clamor. It hums, a quiet lullaby from beneath the earth, waiting to be heard. So now, let your breathing slow, let your thoughts drift, and if your eyes have not already closed, you may let them close now. There is nothing more to do, only to rest. Good night, from Babylon.